All right, so I've started the recording of the system, so the feed will be available for people who could not join. And yeah, and as you see, I think Sherilyn and Suma, they are in the conference room, so there'll be people joining in and seeing this session live. So all right, I think we should start. Um, Heather, you ready?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
ready.
Perfect. All right. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another session from Mumbai Java User Group and organized in collaboration with CTS Tech Healthcare Private Technology Limited. Today's session, we have our honored guest is Heather Vancura. She leads the Java community as a director and JCP program standardization efforts at Oracle. She drives the efforts to transform the community in broadening the participation and diversity in the community. So, and she's also definitely passionate about Java and women in technologies and other developer communities. So, yeah, apart from speaking in various well known conferences, uh, Heather also enjoys trying new sports and fitness activities in her free time. So, Heather, thanks for joining. And I'll quickly introduce CTS Tech as well. So, give me a second. Yeah, as I mentioned, CTS this event is also co-organized by CTS Tech Healthcare Private Technology Limited. This firm has over 3,500 technology professionals and provides solutions to over 100 healthcare organizations. Um, Guys who just joined, please keep yourself on mute. Thank you. CTS Tech has also been part of Healthcare Informatics top 100 list in 3 consecutive years. And they're always looking, they have all variety of openings in all different career designations and aspects. So if you feel like to make contribution to healthcare innovation, do look out for the CTS Tech sites for job openings. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. So we'll start the session. Heather, it's all you. Take it from here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, we're going to go today through a presentation about the future of Java and use. So, I'll cover in my role as chairperson of the JCP program. What is the JCP? What innovations are coming into the Java platform in the near future? And then how you can get involved as either an individual or part of your Mumbai Java user group. So, as we said, I work at Oracle. I'll cover some forward-looking statements. So that's covered under the Safe Harbor statement. I think we introduced me. One thing we didn't mention was I've been working with the Java community since 2000. So I come from the Sun Microsystems acquisition. So back in the days of Java 1.2. I am from California. I live in California currently, but my job takes me all around the world, trying to include developers from all different geographies as well as different perspectives. So you can follow me on Twitter if you want to find out more about what I'm talking about today. So we're going to talk about Java, and as we celebrate over 20 years of Java software development, since Java was introduced 24 years ago, and the JCP is currently celebrating 20-year anniversary this year. We look back over the past 20 years, Java is still the #1 programming language, and it's grown to have over 12 million Java developers around the world. And our focus now is primarily looking at Java running in the cloud. So we have 38 billion active Java virtual machines and 21 billion cloud connected virtual machines around the world. And I thought about why is it that a language that's been around over 20 years still remains so successful? And as we transition and transform the industry to focus on the cloud, Java still remains the most popular programming language. And I believe that's because many of the philosophies that we've used to evolve Java remain the same year over year. And that continues to be the case in terms of focusing on the platform completeness, its quality and security, as well as being able to modernize the platform and bring in new innovations. And then particularly where my role comes in with the Java community process, ensuring that the technology is developed in the open, transparently, with that focus on compatibility. And as I'll explain to you, the JCP really lays that foundation for the compatibility of Java technology and ensuring that active ecosystem and your involvement. And that's what makes Java so unique in the way that it's developed, the community and the ecosystem and that promise of compatibility, different from any other language or technology. And we're celebrating 20 years of the JCP program. If we were in a room, I would ask you how many people know what is the JCP program, and most of you wouldn't really quite be able to explain it, but after my presentation today, you should be able to answer that question and understand how the technology that you use every day is developed. And then also a little bit about just where we've come over time. And if you've been using Java technology and following the news for the last couple of years, we've had a lot of changes introduced. But if you look back over the history, there's always changes coming into the community, and the community evolves and adapts to keep pace with those things, and we'll continue to do that. So the future remains bright. Looking back over the history, we've always managed to adapt to the changes and continue to innovate, and I'll explain to you how we're going to be doing that. So what is the JCP? The JCP is, the acronym stands for the Java Community Process Program. So it's an organization that oversees the development of technology in the Java X namespace, so the Java platform itself. It's not about any one participant or vendor. So Oracle is one participant in the organization, and the Java community makes up the rest of it. So looking at the organization, I serve as the chairperson. I also have an executive committee elected by the JCP program membership. So the executive committee helps me to oversee the organization itself, as well as vote on any technology that goes into the Java X namespace. It must be ratified by the executive committee before it can be put into any shipping code in production. And then I have a small staff that supports me in that, the program management office. But the bulk of the work is actually done in the development projects, so in the JSRs, which I'll explain what a JSR is, but essentially Java's developed in open source now, so it's an open source project with specification leads, so those are the leaders of the project, and then made up of Java community process members, contributors, expert group members, as well as the opportunity for any Java developer to participate and comment throughout the process, and I'll explain to you how that works. But that's the JCP as an organization, how it's structured. And you are free to join the JCP. The main drivers of participation and membership in the JCP, it really come down to two things when I've surveyed the members. particularly when it comes down to individuals. First of all, having a positive impact on your career in terms of knowing what's coming next in the Java platform, being seen as an expert, and then just being a part of the community and a citizen. So being able to vote in the annual elections and find out what's coming next in the platform. So as I mentioned, JSRs are the bulk of the work developed through the JCP. So every Java technology used in the namespace is developed as a JSR. That's what we call our projects. That stands for Java Specification Request. Most developers have actually heard that term JSR before. You might not quite understand that every JSR is actually three things. And this is some of the things that get taken for granted sometimes with Java, is the fact that these are requirements. So it's not just the code, it's a full, complete specification, as well as the reference implementation, which is the code, and then a test suite as well. Every JSR follows the same life cycle. It's voted on by the executive committee and is made up of an expert group of members, as well as a lead and associate members participating as contributors in the JSR. And as we have three deliverables, I like to call this the compatibility triangle. So this is what really creates the promise of compatibility and the ability to have an ecosystem of multiple implementations for you as developers to choose from, but also for you to be able to transfer your skills across the different implementations that are out there and the products that are in the market. So the specification, the reference implementation, the TCK, these provide the foundation of compatibility of the Java technology. So a spec that's telling you you can how to build an implementation, the reference implementation being the proof of concept, one implementation that's implementing that specification, and then the test suite to enable multiple implementations. So anyone in the community can take the specification, build their own implementation, run it. I can't talk when there's background.
So, yeah, guys, can you put on yourself on mute, please? Vaidehi? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just put on yourself on mute so that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, and then the test suite. So the test suite, you would run your implementation against the test suite, and then be able to call that Java if it passes. So that's what creates that entire ecosystem, not just the one project that may come out of the open source project, the reference implementation, but multiple implementations. And as I mentioned, it's an international effort. We have developers participating in every part of the world. And also different types of members. So that's evolved over the years as well. When the JCP first started, it was primarily corporations, but now we also have open source groups, nonprofits, Java user groups, as well as individual developers. And really with the shift to open source software development, that's completely flipped, where now the majority of members and participants in terms of the numbers are coming from individual developers who are passionate about the technology, and that passion drives the growth in the platform.
Cool.
And if you look at our executive committee, if you're curious who's on the executive committee, we have that same balance. So we have a 25-person executive committee now. So that's made up of all the different types of members that we have in the organization, and we meet every other month. Here's a picture from the last time that we met in San Francisco, which was sponsored by Twitter, held at the Twitter offices. Twitter is on the EC. So that's all of us there getting together. Like I said, we meet every couple of months to review technology, as well as look at the overall structure of the organization and implement changes to adapt to the needs of the community, as well as changes that come introduced through the projects in the technology.
So Heather, one question is, can people or corporations or community, they can join the executive committee, or it's closed?
Yes.
Okay.
So any full JCP member can run in the elections, and we have elections every here.
Okay.
So JCP members are eligible to vote for the executive committee. So if you're a member of the JCP, you can nominate yourself to run in the elections that happen every fall. So we're getting ready in September to open the nomination period.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yes. And as I mentioned, Java is developed in open source projects, but we continue to maintain that we need both standards and open source, and that's what the JCP ensures. So open source is a requirement, but we still have the standard. We agree together on what to standardize in the JCP and what to compete on, and that would be the implementations. And that results in not only more implementations and choice, but also greater adoption of Java technology, of the standard. And now that we are developing an open source, you also see that oftentimes we'll start with the code versus with the spec. So the code is developed and the spec is written alongside of that versus writing a spec and then developing an implementation after the fact. So within the JCP, we work on in an open source way, but also to delivering Java as a standard to ensure that compatibility promise, as well as the multiple implementations. So that's my primer on what is the JCP. So for the next portion of my talk, I'll tell you about the focus of the organization moving forward, and that's threefold. First of all, of course, delivering new revisions of the platform, evolving the JCP program itself, reforming it to meet those needs that come about, and increasing the participation from the Java developer community, and therefore how you can get involved in that process. So starting with the platform innovations, Java SE is developed in OpenJDK. OpenJDK provides the reference implementation out of those three pieces I talked about. So the Java platform is still collaboratively released under open source license. OpenJDK providing the reference implementation, and the work through OpenJDK rolled up into JSRs that are ratified by the executive committee before they can be delivered and shipped and downloaded by developers all over the world. And Java SE is the focus of the JCP moving forward. We had the last major release, so if you want to download the last major release of Java, you would go and you would get Java 12 right now. So that's the current release that we're on. Back in 2017, we introduced modularity to the Java platform. And that allowed us to also announce a faster release cadence. So rather than delivering Java platform releases every 3 to 4 years, that means that we're moving to a cadence of new Java platform releases every 6 months.
Okay.
We also introduced a concept that's new to Java, but not new to technology overall, and that is the concept of long-term support releases. So long-term support releases of Java every 3 years. So we'll have releases of Java every 6 months with update releases in between, and long-term support releases every 3 years. So that means that Java 11 was the first long-term support release, and the next one will be Java 17 looking forward. And technology, in terms of what goes into those releases, the technology is the same. The difference is the support that's provided. And what's interesting as the community, in addition to Oracle starting that concept and offering long-term support, other community members also have stepped forward and introduced their distributions for long-term support, and assuming that those distributions pass the TCK, that will provide again that choice for developers as well as the promise of compatibility. So something to look at when you're choosing your distribution. And then finally, back around that same time, with announcing the new cadence, the modularity, and the concept of long-term support releases, Oracle announced that they would open source many of their proprietary features into OpenJDK, so increasing and accelerating that rate of innovation into OpenJDK. What that means is we have now open source features in Java that was previously available only to Oracle customers, now available in the Open JDK. So that was done incrementally over time, starting in 2017. But at this point, all of these new features are now available as of Open JDK 11 version. So some new features like Flight Recorder, Mission Control, and the ZGC garbage collector.
Okay.
So put in as in the same process through OpenJDK, organized as JEPs. In OpenJDK, they organize their projects as JEPs, which stands for Java Enhancement Proposals. Those JEPs are then targeted for a platform release. And once they're in a platform release, they're JSR. It's a collection of JEPs, which are then provided to the executive committee to ratify for the platform releases. So accelerating that innovation going into the platform. So I'll just walk through the last few releases, starting with Java 9, since this is when we started introducing these changes. So that was back in September 2017, almost 2 years ago. So it was a major release, and like most major releases, it had over 100 new features, so different Java enhancement proposals. And I don't expect you to be able to read this screenshot that I took, but as you can see, this is a snapshot from OpenJDK showing what's in Java 9, and the features part underneath, that's just listing all the JEPs. And that's pretty typical. A platform release would have over 100 new features. It would take 3 to 4 years to develop, and developers would need to wait to bring in new innovations and utilize new features in the platform until that release was ratified by the executive committee and put out and delivered to the community. And that would take anywhere from 3 to 4 years. The team in OpenJDK, the community members would work on those features that were targeted for Java 9. It was targeted to be Project Jigsaw, but like you can see, many other things besides Project Jigsaw. And work would continue until it was ready, and the release would be, date would focus on whether or not the features that were targeted were ready or not. But Java 9 was really about way more things than Project Jigsaw, over 100 new things. As was pretty typical, and that's why developers think of a migration project as a big undertaking, months-long project within your organization. But shifting to a faster release cadence, what you're going to see is more typical of what came out in Java 10, the first release to come out on a 6-month release cadence that was released last year in 2018, more like 12 new feature requests coming into the platform. So once you migrate past Java 8, which the majority of the Java community still is working in production on the Java 8 platform release, which was the most quickly and widely Java release ever. So once you migrate past Java 8, past Java 9, really, it's going to be a more of an incremental migration project, and things that I'm going to talk to you about will help you to get more into that practice of more of a continuous delivery, agile development in your migration between Java versions, rather than a multi-month project that you do every 3 to 4 years. So first feature release came out last year, as I said, 12 new features. So these are the new features that came into the platform. That's what I'm talking about, accelerating innovation. So availability for new features, such as JEP 286 introduced the local variable type inference, the var keyword that came out, and 11 offering long-term support as well. It provided 17 new JEPs. Also, the idea of preview features also came out around this time. The idea of having some preview features that you can try out and use. That means that they are shipped with the platform, but you need to turn them on if you want to use them. So for instance, with Java 12, which is the release that's out today, it included 8 JEPs. It included the switch expressions preview feature. So that's an innovation that's available in Java 12. but they're still looking for feedback on that feature. Also of note in Java 12, major contribution from Red Hat, an experimental feature, Shenandoah garbage collector. So what we're seeing with this faster release cadence of every 6 months is an acceleration and a wider pipeline of new features coming out, which I'll start to talk to you about some of the projects where the new features are being developed, but also more engagement in the community. So an increasing amount of community members making substantial contributions to the platform and to the project, which is a sign of a healthy project and a project that has a lot of lead time to grow looking forward, as well as attracting that younger generation of developers to ensure that Java continues to remain successful. So the way it works with this new platform is every 6 months, whatever JEPs or projects are ready coming out of the work being done in OpenJDK is what makes it into the release. Whatever's ready, picking a major project or feature, whatever's ready every 6 months is what goes into the platform, is put forward for a vote by the executive committee, and is what is then delivered in the platform release. So Java 13 set to come out next month. 5 JEPs being put into that. Even though it's not coming out until next month, though, you can download the early access builds of it now. So that's how you can start to evaluate whether you will migrate to that version and what changes you might need to make in your applications by getting into a habit of downloading those early access builds, which are made available on OpenJDK every couple of weeks. There'll be a new build that comes out that you can download and run against your applications in development. So can't migrate into production until it's final release, but you can download it and use it in development and during that early access release time. And we've already started working on Java 14, so that JSR has been filed on jcp.org, that's our website, with a planned release of March of 2020. So the features coming out in the coming months and years will come out of some of the projects that are being developed and worked on in OpenJDK. I'm going to highlight a few of those. So these are things to think about in terms of if these are features or functionality that you use or you're interested in or you want to get involved in, you can look at joining these projects, joining the mailing list, and getting involved. So the work that's happening in OpenJDK in these projects will focus on the platform investments and the priorities for the Java platform moving forward, with security being the #1 priority. And again, that goes back to the philosophies over time. Remains key priority for Java and the platform, as well as looking at how we can increase developer productivity, ensure that compatibility, look at increasing density of the platform, improving its startup time, and its predictability, as well as simplification of serviceability and profiling. So mapping those priorities to some of the projects that I'll walk you through, for instance, Amber, Panama, Loom, Valhalla. For some of the key projects that are being developed in JDK by the community. So I'll start with Project Valhalla, which is about the object data layout. So Project Valhalla is introducing value types to the platform. And this is one that actually just recently is solidifying past the prototype stage. So there's an early access build out of Project Valhalla itself. So that's an interesting project to look at and one for you to consider for your Java user group, even doing workshops, as the project progresses and starts to introduce JEPs, Java enhancement proposals, and start to implement some of these concepts into the platform itself. There's also Project Portola, which looks at Java in a world of containers, so ensuring that Java remains the first choice for deployments in the cloud, safe, secure, and reliable. So Project Tortola, the focus being on containers. Also, I mentioned earlier project CGC, so low latency garbage collector. This is available in early access. Will be available with Java 13, so the release that's coming out next month. You can download it separately on java.net if you want to check that out. Project Panama. So Project Panama is use cases for artificial intelligence, big data, and machine learning, looking at improving Java in a native environment. One of the big things we're looking at here is simple, safe, and performant replacement for JNI. So if you're interested in that space, take a look at Project Panama. And Project Loom, so next generation concurrency model for Java. So lots of work going on here. The big project idea is creating millions of fibers, taking them and combining them into a single JVM instance. So it's really cool stuff going on in Project Loom.
The fibers sounds pretty interesting. I think is it if the language itself will become probably multi-threaded, it would be really awesome. I think.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff going on in Project Loom. So each of these projects that I'm listing has its own mailing list and discussion forum, as well as links to the code that you can download. Early access, of course, is not available in the current platform versions. But yeah, any of these things that look interesting to you, go to OpenJDK and go to the project page, and you'll find all the links to dive deeper into any of these. Project Amber is its own project in OpenJDK, but it's a collection of smaller language improvements. One of these that's come out already out of Project Amber is switch expressions, for instance. So this will continue to evolve, proposing language improvements to the Java platform. So they're all available. Early access builds on jdk.java.net. A couple of the projects I just walked through, for instance, Panama and Valhalla have their own early access builds. So when you go to jdk.java.net, you can get the version that's ready for use, which right now we're on actually 12, but then you can also get the early access for 13 and 14, as well as the early access builds for Panama and Valhalla, and the reference implementations for prior versions being maintained on OpenJDK, which you just go to jdk.java.net to download those. You can also become a contributor of OpenJDK or just follow along. Like I mentioned, all those projects have their own pages and mailing lists that you can join, or you can follow OpenJDK on Twitter to get some of the news about the platform releases, as well as the projects, new things that are coming out or being introduced. And also to follow along with new updates to the platform, there's an updated Java training and certification. So you can now get Java 11 training and certification from Oracle University. There is currently a 25% off discount for Java user group members. You can follow the link there if you're interested in getting 11 certification or training. So those are the updates to the Java platform. So lots of changes I talked about, lots of new and exciting things in the pipeline. But the JCP program itself also needs to change to adapt to some of these things that we've talked about. So that's reforms to the program itself, and that's the work that I lead with the executive committee, and we do that under the banner of JCP.next. So we're looking at changes we might need to make to the rules and or the constitution, as I like to call it, of the JCP itself. So things that govern how the organization works. And a few things that we've done. First of all, transparency and openness. So ensuring that all that work I just talked about is done in open. So the Java community has access to view, comment on those changes, as well as participate in it. So that's all done transparently versus a members only approach. So while members are the ones that can actually make contributions, you would need to join if you want to make a contribution, but if you want to comment or provide feedback, that all is done in the open, whether you're a member of the community or not. And then also looking at less oversight by the executive committee. So merging the executive committees into one executive committee with the changes in the platform, and also looking at resizing the committee to make it a little bit more nimble and manageable, and always looking at keeping the work being actually done in the projects and in the JSR expert groups and in the open source groups where the Java technology is being developed. And then, of course, we're looking at how we can have more participation and be able to move faster. So JSR used to operate on a timeline of being delivered every 3 to 4 years, and we're now looking at a model where we can develop a JSR and have it go through its entire life cycle in 6 months. So we first of all broadened our JCP membership by eliminating barriers to participate. We did that by eliminating the fees, eliminating any paper agreements, all that done electronically, and also adding different types of membership for different types of people, in particular for individuals who want to join and contribute without necessarily needing their employer permission or signature. So we enabled that by having new membership levels. So rather than one size fits all, one membership for corporations and the same membership for Java user groups and individuals, now we have 3 different types of membership and 3 different types of agreements that make more sense for the way that the different types of members were actually participating. So individuals can now join as associate members and participate as a contributor on a JSR. Java user groups can join as partner members, and then corporations as well as some qualified individuals can serve as full members on the expert groups and the executive committee. So 3 types of memberships now. And then also with that faster release cadence, we had to streamline the JSR development cycle. As I mentioned, every JSR, whether it's the actual platform itself or a standalone optional JSR, optional package, which we still develop those through the JCP, they follow the same process. And we needed to streamline that since the JSR lifecycle was based more on a waterfall style development. Now it's obviously done in open source projects, and needs to be more agile and iterative versus following a waterfall with concrete, discrete milestones, more of an open development period, but still keeping that balance of having the vote by the executive committee before it can be delivered and shipped into and used in code that's being used in production. So we streamlined that. So the last release of the JCP program itself, we rolled out in December 2018, and we continue to do that work. So I mentioned we have meetings with the executive committee. We also make that work open to the public, so you can view the work of the executive committee and the things that we talk about. If you're interested in having transparency into that, it's available to you. So we'll continue to work on making the JCP more open than it ever was before, and that leads to the last part of my presentation, which is how will you participate? So you can participate as an individual, that's okay, but what our experience has shown us over time is that if you work as part of a team, it's better for not only for you, but also the feedback that you deliver is more valuable and refined. So working through with a small group of people in your Java user group or a small group of folks, developers at your employer, you can help each other, teach each other, work with each other, and provide feedback to the project teams. So working together, we all can achieve more. And we do this starting over 5 years ago with an effort called Adopt a JSR. So it's an adoption effort to drive adoption of the platform, but also to get developers accustomed or used to the new features or new ways that the platform is being developed. So we have 80 Java user groups participating in that effort so far. Several in India. This list is probably not 100% up to date, but you can see that we have Java user groups all over the world engaged in this effort, as well as highlighting some of the more prominent efforts and some of the presentations that the Java community does all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try to make sure Mumbai Java user group is also part of this, so we can contribute some more. And
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you'd like to and want to get engaged.
I think. Hey, can you guys put yourself on mute, please? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's essentially what I put together now. Is we've got 5 steps in terms of what you'd want to do. Hopefully, some of the things I walked through previously give you a little bit of, insight into some new things that maybe you find particularly interesting. So the first thing you can do is decide what you want to work on, right? So pick something. That's your first step. Once you join, pick something that is exciting to you. So whether that be the platform itself, I focused on the platform itself. So that would be the Java SE platform. So 13 is JSR 388. Obviously, that's just about finished now. So Java 14 or any of the projects in OpenJDK. Or there's also a few standalone optional JSRs. So for instance, there's a visual recognition JSR, which is JSR 381. So looking at that artificial intelligence space, in particular the visual aspect, that will be delivered as an optional package standalone JSR in the Java namespace. There's also a desktop application API that's standalone. Units of measurement JSR. There's also money and currency JSR coming forward, and the portlet bridge for JSF is a JSR that's being developed as a standalone optional package.
Okay.
So pick something, and you can go to jcp.org. This screenshot. Every JSR has a standard page like this. So what you find on the JSR page is you would get links to all the relevant information. So like the latest drafts, links to the public communication forum, links to the public issue tracker, as well as contact information for the group, for the spec lead, the leader of the project. And that really leads to the second step, which is do use those links to communicate. So if you want to get engaged and participate, let that interest be known. So those communication forums and that transparency of information is there. So it can be a two-way street. So you can view that information, but then also communicate your interest and maybe discuss what you want to do with the project participants, and then provide your feedback. So making sure that that's a two-way communication. And then the third step would be deciding together what steps you want to take. And I think that's really key. So sometimes in the early stages of this engagement, people would decide they want to do something without communicating or getting that agreement and deliver something that maybe wasn't the most useful or needed. So make sure you are taking that step of communicating. So taking a look at the discussion forum, taking a look at the issue tracker, providing feedback, right? So sharing your ideas, giving your feedback, and agreeing together what steps you're going to take. These are not by any means like you can only do these things. These are just a few suggestions to get you started thinking about things that might be useful. So you can take these as suggestions more than it has to be on this list. But what projects have found useful have been, reading the specs and Java docs, and it doesn't have to be the entire spec. It could be just a part of a spec that you're interested in, and sharing your feedback on it.
Okay.
And then clarifying, I've only taken a look at this section. This is my comments on this section. So it doesn't have to be the entire thing, but that's definitely needed. Downloading those early access builds, the early access reference implementation, really helpful to, again, download it, try it out, provide your feedback. And that could be especially helpful if you have gathered a group of developers together and you collectively provide your feedback from Mumbai user group. This is our feedback when we downloaded this specific build. For new functionality especially, sample applications are always useful. Even just speaking about the technology and educating others in your local community to participate is helpful. Sometimes translations in a native language helps to increase adoption, and that can be helpful. Or even just creating awareness about the technology, about the JSR or the project or the build, putting information out there on social media or giving talks at conferences, and help with documentation is always welcomed as well. So a few things to get you started thinking about what might be something you can get involved in. And then, like I said, essential to give that feedback and provide those comments. You can do that through the issue trackers as well as the public discussion forums. And organizing hack days, that's probably been the key way that developers have gotten engaged, either as a separate type of event that you have in your user group or participating in events locally or around the world. So this is a picture from a hack day we did last October at Code One. So I always organize a hacker garden there to bring different types of developers there. So
Heather, one question here. This is very interesting. So as I told my firm here, CTS Tech, right, they would like to arrange some of this sort physically live in Mumbai region. So any thoughts on this, how to go about arranging such hack days and workshop? Because that will be really valuable for Mumbai JUG user group as well as CTS Tech.
Yeah, so that's kind of if you follow along those previous 4 steps. So picking something, right? Engaging with the project lead, figuring out what you want to do, and then organize a hack day to actually do it. That'd be like the last step, right? Like actually bring together some people. And as you can see, it doesn't have to be a large group of people. It can even be smaller than this, 3 to 5 developers, right? And host it at your company. You can host it at a co-working space. You can host it at a conference. So tell people in advance, this is what we're going to do. Bring your laptop, download this build, bring an application you're going to run it against, and then get together. Several hours usually is needed.
Hi, I have a question over here. I think you were talking about something, right? You're putting efforts in ensuring that how Java can contribute into container world. So can you just elaborate that, right? What exactly the motive is, like how?
Yeah, I do not have the opportunity to deep dive into all those projects. So you should go to OpenJDK and click on that project. And there you're going to find a wiki as well as links to any code if there is any, and then a discussion list. So join the discussion list and even look at the archives. So that's what you would do if you want to find out more about that project.
Sure, thanks. Yeah.
All right, I was going to go back there, but essentially that's what I recommend. Okay. And that could even be, so somebody asked a question about Project Loom. You go to the project, that can be, a project. So for instance, London Java community, we're getting ready to organize a workshop more hands-on on Project Valhalla, going through that latest early access build. So that's, again, step number 1, pick something, right? So maybe that's the thing that you're interested in, and you pick to focus on and check out, do a deep dive and go through the materials that are there. But you can also search online. All of these projects have Java architects that are working on them, and they're delivering talks at conferences. And as you know, most talks these days are recorded and available online. So that's another thing you could do even before you do a hands-on workshop, is get together collectively and watch that talk, right?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
recording, even if you're all doing it separately, but it can be helpful to get together and go through one of the recorded talks, and then think about what's most appealing to you and how you want to get engaged. Early access, also a good place if you're going to get involved is to join the adoption group. That's a place where you can provide comments on your early access builds. So in OpenJDK, there is an actual adoption group. You join that project, and that's also a place to go if you're not sure where to provide your feedback. Like if you don't know which project it should go to. The adoption group has folks who are members and leaders that can direct you to the right place. So in OpenJDK, that mailing list for the adoption group there's an adoption discussion group.
Okay.
Join that list and send any feedback that you have there. Whoops. In addition to that aspect of the adoption group, there's also a quality outreach group, which is a subset of the adoption group. It has its own mailing list as well. But what the quality outreach group is it's a collection and a matrix of free and open source projects that are dependent on Java. So obviously, most of the all of the IDEs and a lot of the corporate tools that are backed by corporations, they put in the work to be able to have the latest version of Java working on their products, because they're commercially backed. But the open source projects often need more contributors. So this is another area where you could look at getting involved, is joining any one of the open source projects that are participating in the quality outreach group. So there's over 100 projects listed there. If you go to the quality outreach sub-project of the adoption group in OpenJDK, there's a matrix there with all the project leads listed, as well as links to the code for the project, and a matrix showing what version of Java they're currently running on. So a couple of examples I've listed here, but again, only 2 out of the over 100 that have engaged and been able to keep up to date with the release cadence and gain new committers are the Eclipse Collections project and the Apache Maven project. So if there's projects that you're using, this is a great way to get engaged and contribute and become a committer on an open source Java project. It's a great resource to get involved in, and maybe even collectively as a user group, there's a project that you want to get involved in there. So I encourage you to take a look at that as another option.
Cool.
So you can follow the JCP online, go to jcp.org. You can join the JCP as either your Java user group as an individual, or maybe your company wants to join. All the information is available there. Like I mentioned, you can follow on Twitter. I think that's a great place to follow along, get Java news. The JCP has a Twitter account that I manage, as well as I have a personal account that you can follow along. I will be organizing lots of activities focused on these ideas next month at Oracle Code 1. I don't know if any of you are planning to attend, but even if you're not, like I said, a lot of the talks are recorded. So after the fact, make sure you go and check out the catalog of recordings that'll be available. Did somebody want to say something?
Yeah, no, I'm just good. I just said I might have look out for this Code 1 event. I might be able to join, but let's see.
Yeah, so this is the formerly known as Java 1 event. It's renamed with a focus beyond Java. There's still there was last year the first edition of Code 1, and still a primary focus, I would say, on Java, but also adding in other technologies as well, which makes more sense in terms of most developers these days are using multiple programming languages and tools. Makes sense to broaden it and be inclusive. But I would say, I go to conferences all around the world on a regular basis. That's essentially part of my job. So still has a really strong Java presence and unique in that it really still does collectively draw developers from all over the world. I've been to the DevOps events, which are typically more regional. So like DevOps, very broad collection of EMEA developers, but Code One still continues to be the place where you can get a collection of developers from all over the world, which is truly unique.
Heather, one question. As a Java user group, can we have sessions on more than other languages other than Java? Like, is that okay to do, or?
Yeah, I think I see that too. Yeah, usually Java user groups will have a wide variety of talks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
All right, so thanks for your time. If you have questions, you can send them to me on email or on Twitter.
Okay, I think.
Okay.
Good.
So
Thanks a lot.
I think we'll open up for some questions here. So guys, you can go ahead and ask one by one. So yeah, if you let's go ahead.
So I think from Mumbai, I think we are good, right, Jiten? No.
Hello, this is Sanjeev. Can you hear me? Chan, can you hear me? I have a question here.
Yeah, Sanjeev, go ahead.
Yeah, most of the applications here is on Java 8. I mean, worldwide applications, Java 8 or 9 at the most. But Oracle, as they said, they have stopped providing support on that in terms of releasing of patches, the security patches, and they would like to migrate to the higher stable version like Java 11 or 12 being the latest one. So, Heather, how would you recommend us to, in such a scenario, would you recommend us to migrate stepwise, like to Java 10, then 11, or is it okay to migrate straight away to Java 11 or 12, the stable version? Because I'm sure it's not as easy migrating, just putting the newer version, installing it, and that's it. The application is up and running. I don't think it's that easy to do that. So, what would be your recommendations on that aspect?
Yeah, well, if you're before Java 9, I think, it will be more incremental over time, but now being before Java 9, I would recommend go, to the higher version, right? So to 11 or beyond at this point. It's not necessarily necessary to go to each one individually. In other words, go 9 and then migrate to 10 and then migrate to 11 and then migrate to 12. You can do it that way. But I think from talking to developers, what they've found is that it's going to be a big jump to get past 8. And so you might as well move forward to, now we have, 11 as a long-term support release, for instance, to migrate to that version directly from 8. And then getting in a habit of looking at it so that it can be more incremental, and maybe you get in the habit of going, migrate every 6 months, or maybe you decide that you're gonna adopt the pattern of only migrating to long-term support releases, which would be more typical to what you would see with it would feel more like a change from like 7 to 8, for instance, right? So it's more that kind of time frame too. If it's every 3 years, right? Java platform releases used to be every 3 years. So if you decide that you want to do long-term support releases, that would mean moving past 8, you go 11 and then 17 if you're looking at wanting that long-term support model. Or you could get in the habit, once you get past Java 8, of migrating every 6 months and getting those patches and getting into that similar cadence and more of a continuous delivery model where you're migrating every 6 months. And the fact that we have those early access builds coming out every 2 weeks, you get into the habit of maybe every month or so, you're downloading the early access build and you're evaluating what changes you would need to make to the application, and you're doing those, you're kind of in tandem preparing for it. So I think it really depends on your organization, the way you want to go, whether you want to get into that habit of migrating every 6 months or following that long-term support migrating only every 3 years. But the initial part of it is no, I don't think you have to do 8, 9, 10, 11 like that. You can move forward from 8 to 11 or beyond.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. So, of course, yeah, to Java 8 to 11, there is a lot of changes that has
Mm-hmm.
happened over the architecture, and it does require a bit of an effort to migrate on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. There's also one more question for me. See, from the Oracle perspective, we have OpenJDK, which is open for the community to contribute and add on more features. Then we have Java Standard Edition, which we can download and we can start developing our application on that. But then again, on Java Standard Edition, we have someone from developers for the development environment or for testing environment, which is not licensed in the sense it is freely we can download it and make use of it. But if in terms of making that application on a production, I think we need to have that license there. So how does Oracle differentiate in these two aspects, and are all the features which is there in OpenJDK available even in the standard edition as well?
Well, so OpenJDK is actually made up of more than just Oracle, but Oracle is the top contributor. But yes, you can download the early access OpenJDK builds and use them in development, like you talked about, right? So that's not a problem, and you can download from java.dev.net the builds as well. In terms of commercially supported, I don't get involved with that. I know there's options for getting commercial support for it. I talked about the features from Oracle's JDK. They migrated the features into OpenJDK, so that means that there used to be some proprietary features in Oracle's JDK. At this point, they've contributed the majority of them into OpenJDK. I don't know exactly all the particulars. I don't, the Oracle specific questions, I'm probably not the best person to ask, because while I do interact with the group that manages that, my focus is running the JCP and the community aspect of it. So I can't specifically answer that,
Okay.
but I hope that gave you a little bit of information.
Yeah, sure, Hitesh. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we have probably just a couple of, I think we're already done, but any last question? We have a space for one more question.
I think there's one question, Jiten, from Mumbai.
Yeah.
Hi there. So I have one question. Like many people started using Java 8 and 9. So Java are going to release like every 6 months new version. So suppose within 2 3 years, like Java 17 is going to come. So like the for the organization, like it will be like if they have like 3 years, 5 years projects, long term projects. So suddenly they started building that project with Java 11, 12, or 13 something, and in between Java 17 come, like, so means how difficult, like
Yeah, I
to
think.
them to adopt it.
Yeah, so I think Heather probably answered that question. I think the idea in that case would be to align the project such that you upgrade along with Java as Java gets upgraded. Probably that's the one, right, Heather?
Yeah, well, the projects, I think you're talking about your internal projects. So the OpenJDK projects, they'll roll out things from their projects over time as they're ready. But you, inside your projects, you can either decide to wait in between releases, just like you used to, or you can choose to migrate every 6 months. And the way you can decide is by downloading the early access builds, running your application against it, and deciding what changes you would need to make to your application, and whether or not you're going to be making those changes either now or later.
Yeah, that's always the good idea. I think keeping the parallel streams going on, that helps to upgrade
Yeah.
pretty easily. So on
Yeah.
basically on one internal application project, you have your production build and things going on. On another build, you keep on experimenting with newer versions of Java and see if it breaks anywhere, and then fix it.
Right.
All right. So I think we're pretty much done for the session. So thanks everyone, and thanks Heather. Appreciate really to provide this session early this morning here on the Seattle West Coast. So thanks everyone for joining, and keep looking for more amazing such sessions from Mumbai Java User Group and CTS Tech. Thanks Heather. Thanks for your time.
Okay.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
connect plenty.
Keep me posted on your projects
Thanks.
and your progress. All right. Talk
Thanks
to
a
you
lot.
later.
Take care everyone. Bye.
Okay. Bye.